Hi guys! So I'm going to do a quick tutorial on how to break apart a design and prepare it to cut something layered. And I'm going to use this one because it's got lots of layers of different sizes, so it kind of shows how you can do that. So I'm going to do this one fairly big so that it's easy for you guys to see when I'm actually doing the layering. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to move it up here to the top part of my mat, and let's make it about as big as we can get here. And what I want to do is I want to start by making registration boxes. Now if you see my mouse, if you can look, you see that there's really faint lines that are coming out both on the horizontal and vertical axis of my mouse. And so this tells me that if I click here, I'm clicking just below these flowers or just to the left. That can be turned on here under page setup. That's this top right here. Click here, and it's called the grid lines or the crosshairs. So turned off, turned on, and the ruler I think is a designer edition upgrade. I'm running business, but that's how you turn those on. So what I want to do is I want to start by drawing registration boxes, and so I want to start just below where these flowers are, and you can see with my crosshairs I'm just below those flowers and just to the left of the state. I'm just going to draw a little box. I'm going to click on that box, and then I'm going to click on my replicate tool. I want to replicate it a few times. Replicate it a few more times, and I'm doing this because I don't necessarily need registration boxes all the way on the left when I'm cutting these flowers. And as you watch the tutorial, you'll see what I mean by these registration boxes. So I'm going to take this one right here. I'm going to click on it. I'm going to hold down the shift key, and I'm going to click on one of the white pieces. And I'm going to, this is my transform, that's this one right here. And I'm going to click this align to right button, and what that's going to do is that's going to take this box on the right and line it up with the right side of my decal. So you can see that those are lined up now, and then I'm going to drag and select all of my registration boxes. I do not want to get the flowers, so let's go from the bottom, and I'm going to click this spacing, and this is going to space the registration boxes out along that horizontal axis so that they're all spaced out evenly. And these are going to come into play when we're doing these smaller pieces. So now that I have everything, I'm going to select everything, and I'm going to, you can right click copy and then right click paste. And another way you can do that is I like to use shortcut keys, and so if you're on a Mac it would be Command C, if you're on a PC it would be Control C, and then to paste it it's either Command V or Control C depending on what type of computer you're using. And I'm just going to drag this below, and I'm going to do it again. I'm going to Control V and paste another one and drag it over here. So for this first one we just want to cut white. So I'm going to delete everything, and this is already ungrouped for the most part, but you can right click and ungroup everything and do it that way. So I want to do white first. I'm going to click black, and I'm going to delete out all of the black, and this would be easier if I had not ungrouped it. So let's, okay, and I just did Command Z. Command Z or Control Z will undo your steps. You can also push these buttons up here to undo and redo. This one to the right, that's a multiple undo. That's coming in version 4.1, but we're not quite there yet. So I can click on the black and delete. I'm going to delete everything that's not black. And so now we have just the white. And then I'm going to go over here to my box. I want to make sure that it's got no fill. I'm going to give it a red line. And again, I'm using these crosshairs. And I'm going to draw a box around that so it all stays together. And then I'm going to drag and select everything, right click, group. So that keeps that together so nothing gets shifted out of place. So now I'm going to come down here. I already have another copy over here. So here I want to delete everything that's not black. So I'm going to delete the white. I'm going to delete. And I'm just clicking on it and pressing the delete key on my keyboard. And again, we're going to get a box, use those crosshairs to help line up your box. And if your box is a little off, you can go back in and drag it to move it around. You can click on the box and then use these little squares to move your box. And I don't need to waste vinyl around the excess, and this will help me with my weeding as well. And again, drag and select everything, right click and group. And you can also use the keyboard shortcut Command G or Control G. Okay, so I'm going to come over here and I'm going to make a copy of this. Copy, paste, and I'm going to drag this down here. We don't want to start deleting anything until we have a copy that's not been messed with. So now we're going to cut the home. Okay, so we're going to select everything that's not gold. And again, this is the way that this came in. You could cut this out of gold glitter. You could cut it out of anything you wanted. And because if you look here for the registration boxes, we don't need this one. We're going to delete it. We don't need this one. We're going to delete it. So that way we're not using. And we do have some space here. But the way home is, it's not necessarily something that has to be lined up exactly on the decal where it shows here, but for the sake of the tutorial we're going to leave these registration boxes. So again, I'm going to take my box, use those crosshairs to line up where I want to draw my box. You could technically delete out these other ones if you wanted to, just to save on vinyl waste, because we still have 3 that we can use to line that up. Drag your box around everything, right click and group. Okay, so now we're down here. Before we start deleting anything, we want to make sure that we have a copy of it for our next step. Group, whoops, Control Z to undo, copy and paste, and drag that out of the way. So now we're working on the flowers, and we can delete everything up here. Now this particular file has all the flowers grouped, so I'm going to right click, ungroup. So first we're going to do the green. So let's delete out all these flowers. And I'm actually, this green is a different color, but I think that I'm going to cut it out of the same shade of green, so I'm going to leave that. We can delete these extra weed box or registration boxes that we don't need, and we're going to drag our box, drag everything, right click and group. Okay, so now since we're just working on the flowers, before I copy and paste this one, I'm just going to go ahead and delete out all of this stuff that we don't need. So we're just working on this, and I'm going to right click, copy, right click, paste. Okay, so now again, this is grouped, so we need to ungroup. We've got the leaves taken care of, so we're going to get rid of those. Now we're going to do the dark pink. Well, this is grouped together, so we're going to ungroup, delete the light pink out of the middle. And now we have our dark pink, and we're going to draw our weeding box. Select everything, right click and group. Okay, so now again we need to copy and paste, and this time we're going to do the light pink. So we need to delete everything that's not light pink. Again, that's grouped. Again, it can get a little tricky when you're layered like this. If you click on this zoom button, you have your zoom in, zoom out, and then this is click to zoom. And you can drag around the area that you want to zoom. And then I want to make sure I'm just selecting the dark pink and deleting that out. Zoom back out. and drag our weeding box. Select everything and group. And again, we're grouping so that nothing gets moved out of place. So now we're going to do, we have purple and blue left. So we're going to copy and paste. And then here we're going to ungroup and delete everything that's not blue. And even though this particular design really only falls over that one registration box, you always want to have two. It just makes it easier to align. Drag your box, select everything, right click and group, and then now we have purple. So we don't need to copy and paste it again, because this is our last one. Because again, I'm cutting that green out of one color of green. One leaf looks a little odd to me. So we are just going to delete everything, draw our weeding box, select everything, and group. So what you can do here, if you wanted to change the color of things so that you can kind of visualize, I'm going to leave everything the color it is. But what you want to do now is I'm going to turn on my grid so you can see. Oh, that is too many. I like to keep my divisions at 1, so I have 1-inch squares. So we have our white, and if you click on it, you can see the dimensions of your box. So I need a piece of vinyl that's at least 5.1 inches tall and just 12 inches wide. And so you could put a black and a white on the mat together and cut it that way. You could drag everything off and cut just your white, and then drag the white off and cut just the black. And then you could move in your gold glitter. And again, for simplicity's sake, I'm going to do things the colors that they are here. I don't think I have a gold glitter adhesive on it, but we'll work something out. Move that over, cut your green. Some people like to place little pieces on their mat. You could move each one in. Again, just make sure that you're lining your vinyl up properly on your mat so that it cuts in the right place. But you're going to cut each one of those pieces, and we will come back with an action shot of me putting this decal together. So I'll see you in a minute. Okay, so we're back. All of the pieces have been cut and weeded, and now we are going to put them together. And so we need to start with the color that goes on top. And so that would be our flowers and our home and all that's going to go before our stripes. And it doesn't really matter here so much, the order, except that the light pink does need to go before the dark pink. And I'm going to use my AT65 transfer tape, and I buy this in a couple different sizes. I buy a 12-inch roll and I buy a 6-inch roll, just so I'm not always having to cut it down when I'm doing smaller decals. And so I want to tear off a piece. It's going to be large enough. I usually measure this out on my guillotine cutter, but for this purpose I can't use that. And so what we need to do is make sure that when we start, we are starting with our flowers in the right place for where it's going to line up here. So I did cut myself a little extra length on my transfer tape just to make sure that I would have a little bit of wiggle room. And so our flowers are going to line up with these two right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with my pink. And for the first one's really super easy, and I'm using this gridded mat to help me get started straight. Again, I'm just going to lay this down so I make sure I'm staying within my space. And I've lined up my transfer tape with the line on my mat, and this first one is just going to go down like so. And you don't necessarily have to do that, but because I'm starting with such a small piece, I want to make sure that I get it in the right place on the transfer tape so that as I work forward, it won't be off. And so I'm going to burnish that down. And what I'm going to do is I'm not going to peel off this whole piece of paper. I'm going to fold it back just a little bit to expose these registration marks that we made. And I'm going to cut the paper off. Okay, so now the only thing visible through here that's going to stick is those registration boxes. And the next thing that we're going to put is the dark pink is going to go underneath that. So again, we're working with a pretty big piece here. This is a big project to practice weeding or practice layering with. But you want to make sure that you are lining up your boxes. So we just want to line up those weed boxes so that they're right there on top of each other. See that? And then you can pull back, remove this paper, and then smooth down your transfer tape. So there's our first one. And then we figure out what do we want to do next. I should have done purple first. It looks like purple was supposed to be on top of the pink, but I had an issue cutting out the little fine detail in the purple, but it's fine. So we'll do this. I'm using I have the design pulled up on my computer so I can look at it and see, kind of like looking at the lid of a puzzle box when you're putting a puzzle together. And I missed that with the purple. So again, we're going to leave that paper on there so that our design doesn't stick to anything. Oh, static. And you can tape down your bottom piece if you need to. You want to line up those boxes. Pull this off here. And then just smooth it back down. So as you can see, because this piece was small, we're sticking up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch out this backing for this backing, just to keep everything protected. Okay, so next we need our blue. So we'll do blue next. Again, like I said, you can tape these down. Sometimes I need to tape them down. This one is wanting to curl and bounce up. So you can tape it down. Just make sure you're not putting the tape somewhere that vinyl's gonna stick when you pull that backing off of the previous layer. You want to make sure that nothing's gonna stick to that. But this way we can get this lined up and where we need to be. Lay it down. And pull this back and just smooth it down. save this tape for another one if we need it. Alright. So again, you can see that this one's peeking up a little bit. So I'm just going to pull this backing off and move it up. You can see that. I just pulled the backing off and I'm moving it up a little higher like this. Alright, and so next we're going to do green, and the green's laying flat, so we're good there. And I'm just going to line that up. It's hard to do this without looking down on top of it. I don't want to blot the camera. Okay, make sure this is smoothed out. Pull that up and lay this back down and smooth it out. Alright, so there's our flower, and again I lost some of the detail in that purple flower when I was cutting it. It was very, very finely detailed. I've only done this design with heat transfer vinyl, so doing it with adhesive vinyl was new, and I think if you were to make it larger it would be fine, but on this small scale it was a little tricky to work with. So again, I'm going to flip this over and cut off this excess. Okay, and then this one, the purple flower, is going to be under the M, so this one's going to line up here. So this is going to be a little tricky because we only have one box to line it up with, but we can still do it. And there we go. And, oops. Be careful, if I were to burnish this, I would make that stick to my backing, and I don't want it to stick there, so I'm just going to set this here, burnish real good, and now onto the black and white, which are the hardest. This is not an easy task, but I wanted to show you guys something complicated so that when you did it with something easier, it will be, oh, this is easy. Again, I'm going to cut down. Back. And back. Okay. And then it's kind of up to you if you want to do the black or the white first. To again line up those marks. Before we burnish anything down, don't want to get this stuck. I'm going to tilt this back. And this is really easy when all of your backings are the same size. You don't risk the transfer tape sticking to the layer beneath it. But I just didn't want to waste all that vinyl. Now take our squeegee and squeegee it down. And all we have left now is the white, which is going to be the most tricky, because it doesn't have the blue backing like some brands do. So it's harder to see the little boxes. So again, pulling this back to expose these registration marks. Cut this right on down. and I didn't even cut it far enough. North Carolina is a really hard state to cut and weed because of our outer banks that go along the east coast out here. They tend to get lost. Alright, so again, you're going to line up those boxes. It's a little hard on this white vinyl. Fingers crossed and everything lines up right when we take it off. With heat transfer vinyl, it's much easier, personally. Burnish that down. Lift this up. Peel off the backing, and moment of truth time. Alright, so this does stick up off the top just a little bit. So what I'm going to do is just remove the backing. I'm just going to move it up because we're going to cut off all those registration boxes anyway. So, and I don't typically recommend removing the backing if you're going to be sending this to somebody, because it doesn't stay on the backing as good as it does to start with. If I had done the white first and then the black, the backing would have been big enough, but this is fine. This works for our purposes. And so now I just want to trim this down. Again, we're going to cut off these registration boxes. Trim across the top here. I feel like I need to put this on something so that we can see stripes, because those white stripes aren't showing up. So, what do I have that I can stick it on? Hold on just a second. Okay, so I really couldn't find anything to put it on, but I did find one of these tiles from the family name signs that people were making. I have one of these tiles. So what I want to do is, I have alcohol. This is a 91% alcohol. You don't need it that high. And a lint-free cotton swab, because these have been sitting in the corner for a while. So I just want to clean the surface really well with alcohol. And make sure this is burnished really well. And I'm going to put this on while the alcohol's still wet. Let's see, where can I put it on here so I could do something with it later? Okay. This towel is a little textured. I'm going to get out my felt squeegee. This one kind of helps get it in the grooves of things. Burnish this down real well. Need to wait for that alcohol to dry. Okay, so I'll let the alcohol evaporate. Burnish that down again. And we'll start peeling this back. And I must say that did pretty good lining it up. So please notice that I'm pulling my application tape back completely folded over on itself. I'm not pulling it up straight into the air or at an angle. I'm folding it back completely. And this helps remove it. And if you get a piece that wants to come with the tape, just take it back and burnish it back down. Turned out pretty good. See that? Hold on. Here we go. So it lined up pretty well, right? And I lost the middle to the purple. I'll probably cut a new little center for that. I lost a few of our Outer Banks. I'm sorry to my fellow Outer Banks lovers out there. But yeah, I think it turned out pretty well. I'll have to figure out what to do with the rest of the sign. And let me know if you have any questions. Thanks, guys.